live here any second. It's a little slow right this second. This should be it. Facebook, good afternoon. It's Linda again. Yep, come on in, have a seat. Comic Spot is brought to you by the Comedy Chateau. Let me do my Vanna White for you. This is a brand new club in North Hollywood. Get a hold of Felix McNulty on Facebook. It's going to be the coolest club you ever did see. So you get out there and support it. Today on Comic Spot, we have a veteran of the military, a gentleman who's been doing comedy for a while. And let's read his bio. He's over there. His name is Shane McMurdo. I met him here in Vegas. Funny guy, getting some big spots in comedy world. So let's get to know him. Let me read you his intro. Shane McMurdo. I'm from here, meaning Vegas, originally. He was in the Navy for 9 years. Woo! Stationed in San Diego. And then New Jersey as a recruiter, and that's not easy. Started doing comedy in New Jersey and New York. Now that's not easy either. He's performed on the American Me Comedy Show at Levity Live in Nyack, New York. Got out of the Navy as an E6, one better than I did, and moved back home here to Vegas to keep following his dream. Out here, he's done Rick's Rollin' Smoke Show and just did a show, get a load of this, with Ahmed at Sultan's. Oh my gosh, welcome to the stage here today. The Shane, I gotta mess something up. I'm like, Shane who? Shane McMurdo. Welcome to Comic Spot, Shane.
Oh, thank you very much. No, you pronounced my name correctly. Thank you for that. Most people don't, especially on the first try. That's pretty good. Thank you.
Thank you. You're such a nice guy. You know, you're a nice young guy with an old soul. Talk to me about how come are you so nice and respectful? I'm not a spring chicken. I'm older, and you treat me like I'm really important and relatable. What's up with that? Not everybody's as nice as you.
I mean, we've all had people be mean to. I don't know. I feel like when I'm mean to people, I kind of just think like, I was like, why did I just do that? You know, so I'm not always nice, but I was just kind of raised that way. It's like, you know, especially you're a veteran too. You know what it feels like to be talked down to almost nonstop. So it's like, it's a horrible way to feel. So that's just, I always keep that in mind. But I also just don't want to be disliked like most people don't, you know, but I grew up, I spent a lot of time with my parents, obviously. And then in the summers, I'd spend them with my grandparents. And my grandparents, they would, like, even though they had me, that never stopped them going to a bar. So I was always around in a bar around older people, whether it be at the Moose Lodge, bowling alley, the VFW, wherever. You know? So I spent a lot of my early childhood around people much older than me. So it's just kind of what I'm used to, you know?
That explains your old soul and your respect for older people. You get it from you. The instant I talked to you, I said, he's been impacted by older people. He's from an old soul, you know? It comes across in the way that you deal with me and others respectfully, not just the military. It's not just yes ma'am stuff. It's a whole lot more than that. You're a very special guy. So I wanted to say that out of the gate. How has the pandemic treated you and your family?
Oh, much better in comparison to a lot of people, but it still had, because, man, I was living in New Jersey when the pandemic happened. And it took away comedy, obviously, living, because I was in Bergen County, New Jersey, which is right on the other side of the bridge of the George Washington. So I was right next to New York City. So it's such a dense, highly populated area. So everything shut down almost immediately in March. So I lost comedy, and at this point in time, I had already known that I was going to be medically retired from the Navy. I had already been given the information and that my exit date was going to be in August. So I was looking to my next juncture. I was supposed to go to Arizona State University to be a recruiter for the football team because
Wow.
my best friend, yeah, it was rather surreal because my best friend from the military, he got out a little bit before I did, and he went to Virginia Tech to work for the football because that's his dream school. That's what he always wanted to do. And he started working for their football team as a recruiter, and he told me to look into it. And Arizona State offered me the position. I took it, but my ACT test, which is pretty much the same thing as the SAT, it's a college entrance exam. I couldn't take it because the test got canceled because the testing centers were closed. So I wasn't able to get into Arizona State.
Oh,
And then I started to panic and I started reaching out to other schools. I ended up going to Oklahoma State in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And same thing, I couldn't get in because of COVID. I couldn't actually get in. So I was going to college in a really small town in Oklahoma. And I did 3 months of that. And I was like, I can't be here anymore. There's no comedy here. There's nothing here. So I started thinking about where I should go next. And I was like, why don't I just go home? I haven't been back in Vegas for a decade now. There's plenty of stages there. I have at least family out there. I haven't had family around me for 9 years. So, it'd just be a nice change of things. So it's affected everybody
yes,
in my family quite a bit. It's really thrown me here everywhere.
wow. That's a big adjustment. You've adjusted to being in the military and being away from family and getting out of the military and now going back to being around family in your hometown and wanting to be a recruiter. Do you have any shot at being a recruiter for any college around here?
I do, but it's one of those things too where it was like I felt like I was chasing being a football recruiter, even though I still wanted to be a comedian. I was just chasing it because I put it in my mind that I had to do it, even though it's not what I wanted to do. So it's, right now I want to be a comedian just like I did before. I still love football, but to go after that as a venture, I just think would be just a waste of time and energy that I can't afford.
Yeah, I get it. So let's go back to early life. I like to take people linearly through, starting at the beginning. Growing up, how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I only had one older sister. She's 10 years older than me. Her name's Shawnee. So
Okay.
I spent a lot of time with her too, but by the time I was in third grade, she was already married, living in her own place and everything.
Wow. So it's kind of like you were the only child.
Pretty much, yeah. Because even when she still lived with us, she was always running off and shit. So I was like, so it was like and it was really easy to be the good one with her as an older sister.
Yes.
She's this girl. I love my sister to death, but she's dyed my hair orange. She's almost cut my ear off during a haircut.
Oh.
She gave me a tattoo because she's told me she was good at tattoos, and she's not. And then the ink wasn't even real tattoo ink, so it's faded. Do you want to see it? It's on my chest. Do
Yes,
you want to see it?
absolutely I do.
It's so bad. So it's supposed to be a Captain America shield. All right, but that is not what I ended up with. I don't even know if you can see just how bad it is. You can barely see it. It's so
Wow.
faded. It's
It looks like
terrible.
something it looks like something you got in like the Korean War.
Yeah, it looks like somebody gave it to me with their foot. That's what it looks like.
Oh my gosh.
It's bad.
Siblings.
And everybody always asks me, they go, why haven't you changed it? And I was like, because it's funny.
It's funny, all right. Oh my gosh. What does kronk mean?
Oh, this is a world famous boxing gym. Do you remember
Oh,
Tommy Hearns back in the day?
no.
Oh, Tommy Hearns is one of the most legendary boxers ever.
No
Back in the
way.
day of Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, and everything. But it was a world famous gym in Detroit, Michigan. Some legendary fighters have come out of there. And then I'm a huge boxing fan, so I love to wear boxing shirts and everything. Especially on stage, you know, I always wear a different like boxing themed shirt and everything like that.
You know, I'm a boxing fan, but I didn't know that name. My dad was a boxing promoter in Portland, Oregon in the 60s.
Oh wow! Oh yeah, I remember you telling me that at the bar. Yeah, that's so amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
but
love
I don't,
boxing.
me too. I can watch boxing matches and I know who's going to win with their first couple punches, you know, and like, I love it. I love the sport.
Me
Yeah.
too.
So have you
Nothing compares
boxed?
to it.
Have you
I
boxed?
have, yes.
What
Yes, I
weight
have.
class?
Uh, Junior middleweight and middleweight, so 154 and 160.
Got
Yeah,
it.
but yeah, I was never anything special. You know, I wasn't terrible, but I wasn't gonna be any. You know, I was never gonna be like a champion or professional or anything. But
Yeah.
um, I still do it now. I don't compete, obviously, but and still, I just love to do it. I love to work on it. Um, Especially everybody has their thing when you know times get hard or they always have that one thing they can do. Some people like to run, some people just like to go on a hike or go to the gym and lift weights. Mine's to just box, to work on my footwork and hit a punching bag. That's what I turn to.
Do you know how I practice my comedy? Boxing my
How's that?
mattress. I take my mattress and put it up against the wall and I say my set to the mattress while I'm boxing. And it helps me get out the emotion that I want to deliver each joke with.
Right. That's very interesting. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I learned it from
Yeah.
a guy named Steve Marshall in New York. He's a big boxing guy and he draws all the similarities between boxing and comedy. So it's
There's
fun.
several parallels. I'm actually starting a show with my best friend, the gentleman I live with.
Mhm.
So he's a hip hop artist, a rapper out here in Vegas as well. And since I'm a stand up comedian, it's going to be focused around boxing, and the show's called Punchlines because it's a comedian and a rapper talking about boxing. But we're going to do interviews with people in all three venues. We just interviewed a professional boxer out here named Joey Barrero last week, nephew of Felix Trinidad. But we talk about just how there's so many parallels between all these things because it's a lonely life and it feels like you don't have a lot of support, you know, and it's one of those things where you have to see results to know progress is happening, and sometimes it just doesn't go your way, and it's hard, it's a grind and a sacrifice, and all three of those things require that. So that's what the show's focused about is we cover each topic, but we also show the similarities and the parallels between them as well.
That's super interesting. So when is that going to start your interview show?
Yeah, it's going to be a podcast, uh, but we're working on getting a studio. We were supposed to do it at the radio station here, Radio Rock Vegas, but unfortunately, the owner of that passed away like the week before we had the meeting set up with him. He's a local Vegas legend. His name's Crazy J, super nice guy. I never had the pleasure of meeting him, but you know, rest in peace to him. So that was a little wrench right now. We do Instagram lives usually every Tuesday on our Instagram page, Punchlines Pod, but hopefully it should be coming out pretty soon once we get like a recording studio set up and everything.
Oh, super. I'll be looking forward to watching that. That's
Yes, and we would
awesome.
love to have you on as
Okay. I'll channel my father and all the things he taught me about boxing.
well. Yeah, that would be an
Maybe I'll,
amazing
maybe,
tab.
yeah, really. Let's go back into your childhood. So you were kind of sort of an only child because your older sister was gone. She left her
Right.
tattoo on you and took off. And and so talk to me about when you found out you're funny. I always find that so interesting. Like Were you always a smart aleck, or the life of the party, or shy, or no one noticed you till you
Um,
were funny?
I always had I always had the thrill to entertain. So believe it or not, when I was a little kid, my favorite movies to watch were Father Goose and Gunga Din, both Cary Grant movies. And I just, ever since I was a little kid, I just wanted to be an entertainer. I loved watching like sitcoms. I loved Seinfeld and Cheers when I was like 2 and 3. And whether it
Ah,
be acting or, but making people laugh, I was from kindergarten through high school, even in the military, I always got in trouble for saying things when I shouldn't have said them or saying things I shouldn't have said, but it made a lot of people laugh. And that's all I cared about. I was willing to sacrifice getting in trouble or getting yelled at just to get a laugh. And growing up out here in Vegas too, the radio station my parents listened to was 97.1 The Point, the classic rock station, which is not only how I developed like a huge affinity with like classic rock and older music. They had a thing called 10 After Laughter, where every hour, 10 minutes after the hour, they would perform a short snippet of somebody doing stand-up comedy. And I was like, what is that? And my parents explained it to me. So ever since, and then I would watch it on TV. I remember I was a little kid. Everybody knew who Jeff Foxworthy was because he had the #1 selling comedy album in my childhood. So when that whole blue collar comedy tour came out, I wanted to watch it. And it was Ron White who stood out to me more than the other three, because the other three, no offense to him, they were kind of like hacky and gimmicky. But
yep,
Ron White was up there talking differently, telling jokes about different things. It was more real to me. And I was like, "Ooh, that's what I would want to do." But no, ever since I was a little kid, even on sports teams, whenever I could find an opportunity to make somebody laugh, I would. I just never
that's
thought of being a comedian in my 20s.
well. What made you decide to? Well, let's. You went in the military for what made you decide to go in the military, and then what made you decide to do comedy?
So, I didn't have the greatest grades in high school. I wasn't dumb. I
Mm,
just didn't apply myself. I was lazy, didn't like school. I didn't even know what I wanted to be. And so I didn't really want to go to college, and I didn't want to pay off student loans. I come from a military family. My grandpa was highly decorated in the Army, my great grandpa as well. Matter of fact, the very first relative from my family that came to America in 1915 served in the World War I, and then it went down. It skipped a generation, so then I did it. I was living out here actually in Vegas at the time. This was 2010. This was right after the recession was horrible. Unemployment was was almost as bad as it is now. So I just joined. I knew the military would give me free college when I was done, a guaranteed paycheck. So I just chose to do it. I was like, all right, this is what we're doing, and went with it.
yeah, and
Um,
then what made you go into comedy then?
so I'd always like pictured if I were to do it, how I would do it, and I always thought I would be pretty good at it. I did a one-off in San Diego, just an open mic there because my friends dared me to, and I did well. It was fun, but it's still, I didn't think about doing it at the time because I was in a relationship at the time, and she didn't even want me boxing and everything. She was weird like that. So I was like, I even asked her, I was like, would you watch me do comedy? She goes, no, I'd be humiliated. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, I kind of placed it to the side, and I moved to New Jersey to be a recruiter. I actually moved out there to be with that same girl,
Mhm.
and we didn't last very long. Once I moved out there, we broke up a few months later because it was just such a
Good.
bad relationship. It took a lot out of me. I'm great friends with her now, thankfully, but for a long time I was not. For a long time, I was filled with like a lot of anger and resentment, and I didn't have any friends or family out there. And then my ship moved from San Diego to Japan, so everybody was on a completely different time zone. And I was also humiliated because a lot of people warned me about moving out there, And I knew how foolish I looked for moving out there and then breaking up. So I kept putting up this illusion that I was fine, and people think I was fine, even though I wasn't. I had absolutely nothing and no one to talk to. So I said, you know what? I've always been really good at the military. I made it from E1 to E6 in 5.5 years, which isn't easy to do.
Nope.
I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna make sure I'm just gonna keep being good at the Navy, keep being good at this, making sure I'm as good as possible. But recruiting in the Navy is a lot different than being on a ship in the Navy. It's one of the most toxic environments in the world,
It is.
is because they they force you to do illegal things, because there's career recruiters. There's people that have been in the military for 2 decades, and their whole time pretty much has been as a recruiter. So they're not even real. They're in the military, but they're not the military. You know, they're salesmen who get to abuse their rank. And you know, I couldn't handle it anymore. And I on my
My
days off, I would
ex-husband,
notice
my ex-husband was a recruiter. I know exactly what you're talking about.
it drains it takes every living thing out of you. And it's even if you have a moral compass and understand that what they want you to do is wrong, it's even harder.
Yes.
You know, what they want you to tell kids and everything like that. And you know, like, hey, just tell him to say he doesn't have asthma, you know, things like that. Like, that's what, come on, you want me to ask somebody to risk their life for what? You're not even going to remember their name tomorrow, and you want them to risk their life so you don't get yelled at? No, like, it's insane. And if you
Jeez.
refuse to do it, they threaten to punish you. It's just absurd. And um but to help me get through it, I would watch comedy specials on Netflix all the time, or listen to podcasts with comedians. And that was when I started tossing around the idea, could I do this? Is this something I could do? And then um, there was one day, you know, the feeling you get when you wake up and you realize you only have like 20 minutes to get to work, and like that panic sets in. That I felt like that, but I had nothing to do. So that's when I realized like something was going on wrong with me. And that's when I went to the military the hospital, and they diagnosed me with severe depression and anxiety. And that just made me feel so defeated, because here I am, a former boxer, I'm in the military, you know, I've lost, I just went through a bad breakup, I'm doing terrible at my job, and now this, like, I just felt like I had been beaten, and I didn't want to do anything. And my friend hit me up and he said, hey, are we still going to that comedy show tonight? Because I forgot that I had bought comedy tickets to go see this show at Gotham Comedy Club in Manhattan. And I was like, you know what, man, I'm not really feeling like it. You can go with someone else. He's like, come on, let's just go. So I was like, all right. And I went. We went to go see this guy named Brendan Schaub. I don't know if you've ever heard of
Yep,
him.
I know Brendan Schaub's name.
Yeah, the former UFC fighter. He does stand up now. And I just wanted to see him do stand up. I was curious to see. I love his podcast, and he does a lot of great things for comedians and just for people. So I really wanted to see that. And we're sitting in Gotham Comedy Club, and they're just filling the club, and I'm sitting there. The stage is lit, but it's empty. And I'm looking, there's over 200, 300 people in there, and they're all excited because, yeah, all they want to do is just laugh. And somebody's going to go on stage to do that for them. I'm like, this is what I want to do, because I wanted to go up on stage right then. I was like, and then the very next month I started doing open mics, and until COVID, I haven't stopped. So that's just that's what got me to do it. That's what pushed me.
What's the very first club you went up on?
Club or open mic?
Open mic.
There's a place called Center Tavern in Westwood, New Jersey. It was about a block away from my house. They're unfortunately not open anymore because of COVID, but that was the very first one I did, not counting the one in San Diego.
And how did your very first time go?
My very first time actually went really well, because I was 7th, and you know, I'd been writing my first 5-minute set for like 3 weeks. So, you know, I worked really hard on it and I practiced it in my head over and over. You could tell I was new at it, but I did really well. My second time, not so much, but that's okay. I got
Yes.
better.
Yes. And so then you continued on at open mics, and how fast would you say that your comedy progressed along its way till you got booked? How did that trajectory go from a beginner to getting booked?
Um, it was really quick, really
That's
quick.
good.
I got paid for my first comedy show in March in Poughkeepsie, New York. It was so this is crazy, right? So I was doing an open mic in a really small town in New York, and me and this one guy were looking at each other. We kept looking at each other because we both recognized each other, but we couldn't tell where from. And he asked me that, and he's like, "Hey, man, have where are you from?" I said, "Well, originally I'm from Vegas." And he goes, "But you live out here now?" And it's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "How long have you been doing comedy?" I said, "Ooh, only about a month or so." And I was like, "What about you?" And he goes, "Oh, I've been doing it for years." So I was like, "Well, where have you performed before?" And he goes, "LA, San Diego." And I was like, "That's where I know you from." I said, "Did you ever perform at a bar in San Diego called Winston's?" And he smiled and he said, "Yeah." And I started telling him his own joke. And he laughed and he goes, "How do you know that?" I was like, "The very first time I did an open mic just for the hell of it, you performed that night." So we actually performed the very same night in San Diego when I did just that open mic. And then I saw him in New York. And then he ended up booking me on a show he was doing in Poughkeepsie. And I made my first $20 doing comedy. I still have it. It's in a shoebox in my room in there.
You have your first $20 bill?
Yeah, that I made doing comedy.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. How
But
sweet
then
is that?
I entered this competition that they were doing with 64 comedians in New York. It was called the Empire State Comedy Showdown. So I got a lot of eyes on me there. But the Levity Live, they did an open mic every Thursday, and I would show up every Thursday. So that was able to get a lot of eyes on me. I was able to meet because they do shows on Thursday nights. So I was able to meet a lot of comedians that would come in, like Robert Kelly, Eric Griffin. I didn't get
Wow.
to meet. Uh, I didn't get to meet. I'm blanking on his name right now. He was busy. I didn't get to meet him, but he walked by. He's really popular too. I can't believe I can't think of his name. Andrew
Kevin
Dice
James.
Clay.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Dice man walked by me, but it was cool. And then the American Me comedy show that they do there, they put me on the show in August of 2019. So I started in January, and by August I got booked at Levity. So
Gee, that is super fast. Super fast. And then you got to open recently for Ahmed. Ahmed, that's a big deal.
yeah, well, I met him through those same guys. I actually met him in New York and everything. He was judging another competition that I was in, and that's the guy who ran the open mic at Levity Live. His name's Mel Hancock. He's partners with Jason Rogers, who does American Me. Jason Rogers is from Cali though, so and then Mel lives in New York. But yeah, that I did the show with them, kept in contact with them, and both Jason, Ahmed, Mel, all great comedians and just human beings. My comedy career would not be at all what it is. Not that it's anything now, but I'm definitely much further than I would have been without them.
And so, who are some of the comedians who have helped craft your comedy with you? Sat and listened to your jokes and given you feedback, or have you done that on your own?
I Mel has helped a lot, and another guy that he's friends with, Anthony Marsalisi, has helped me a lot.
I mean, he came and did a comedy show with me at my veteran comedy show in Manhattan at the VA hospital.
Anthony Marsalisi did.
I
That's
lived there.
crazy. I
Yeah,
love Anthony. Yeah,
he
he
stuck
helped me. That's insane. He's such a great guy. He helped me with and even then he would say, "I get what you're trying to do with this joke. You should do it like this," and things like that. But uh,
nice.
professional comedians, Christopher Titus, believe it or not,
No,
I
love him.
so I watched his TV show when I was a little kid,
Mm-hmm.
and there was another time when I was a kid, my mom and dad got in a fight, and my dad took off, and so I was like sitting at home crying and everything. And to
Yep.
calm me down, my mom put on Comedy Central, and it was Titus, and I recognize him from the show. I'm like, oh, that's Titus. And then everything it was the Norman Rockwell is bleeding special. Every joke he was telling was just about how dysfunctional his family was. So here I am crying over my parents fighting, and I see somebody taking that and making it funny. And I was like, so he's had a huge influence on me because that's what I do. I've been able to make fun of the things that have made my life miserable. I make fun of the Navy on stage right now, and people who were never even in the military laugh at it. I make fun of New Jersey, and people who've never been there laugh at it. So it's like I found a way to make things that have brought me pain to make people laugh at them. And
Absolutely.
I got the chance to meet him, and I just asked him, I was like, for advice, because it's like he does storytelling too. And I go, how do I get better at this? He brought me back to the green room and gave me advice for like 30-45 minutes. Like just cause.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's invaluable. That's just amazing that someone would take the time out of their day to help someone else. That's a way to go. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad he did that for you.
Yeah. Like
I was going through a Ross store in LA one day, and he walked in with his wife. She does comedy too.
Rachel.
Mm-hmm. And he goes way to the back to look at men's suits, and she's up front. So I approached her and I said, "Did you just walk in here with Christopher Titus?" And she said, "I'm his wife." And I said, "Wow, that must be fun." And she says, "Well, sometimes." And I said, "I've been thinking about doing comedy." She says, "Well, tell me some of your material." So I told her some material, and she goes, "Oh, you've got to do comedy." And my stuff was so bad, so basic, you know, how you are at first.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So Rachel and Wendy Liebman both heard some of my comedy because I ran into Wendy too. And they both said, you got to go do comedy. So that, you know, little things that people do can really help you so much.
And I also feel like we're meant to meet people too. Like that guy Chris Shaw.
Mm-hmm.
I've met him. I saw him at the barbecue night, the same night, because you guys performed on the same show, right?
Yes.
At the barbecue. Yeah, I met both you guys that night, and I've been running into him ever since. And just one of those guys too, because he's been doing comedy for 21 years, you know, and he's been everywhere. So, you know, when you ask him a question, the guy's been nothing but absolutely nice to me every time he sees me. But he's really good friends with both Rachel and Chris too.
No way.
Yeah, very good
That's
friends.
so cool.
Because when I
Yeah.
told him the same story, he's like, oh yeah, like he's performed with them, everything. So yeah, that guy. He's out so far out here. He's helped me every time he sees me. He gives me advice. Just talks to me
Oh.
advice. So yeah, another
You know,
person.
when I first met Chris Shaw, he was doing a show, the 7-on-7, or the show that was over at the Oyo Casino. And of all the people there, you just instinctively knew he had the most experience because of his way with the crowd and his eye contact and his body movement. I mean, you knew it was years to get to that level. But I didn't know who he was. And then I was talking to him and I go, wait a minute. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I was with Harvey's Comedy Club, and your picture is on the wall at my hometown comedy club. I'm like, here you are in Vegas with these people on these shows, and you've already arrived. What in the world? You know, like he's arrived. I mean, he's passed at major clubs around the country.
Yeah, he's hilarious too.
He
Doesn't
is.
stumble. That's what you could hit. When I watched him, he doesn't stumble because a lot of people will go, or they'll look down. He maintains eye contact and he just flows from joke to joke to joke.
Yeah, he's really fluid like that. And there's something so special. You know that he's coming from a place of truth, and you know that he's not hiding behind his jokes. You know, he's out there raw, just being real to people. And he's just so, I could study him and never figure him out.
Right.
Because it's
Yeah.
got so many layers. It would take a long time to figure it out.
Yeah, every time I talk to him, tells me something new and something that like I'd never even thought of.
That's fabulous. The more times you can be around people who are better in comedy than yourself, it's just going to help your career so much.
Absolutely. But like from what you've done to what he's done, the fact that Mel took a shot, the fact that Christopher Titus gave me advice, that's another reason why I'm so respectful to people, because it's like you could have things one day and the next day not, and those people have things now, but they're still so willing to give to other people. Christopher Titus could have easily been not have done that. He could have just been like, "Oh, I would give you advice, but I'm sorry, but I'm really." He could have even been polite about it, but instead he was extremely giving. All of you guys have been.
That's so great. What advice would you like to in turn give to brand new I know a couple people that are too afraid to get up on stage, don't have any material, have always been told they're funny. How would you like to say something to brand new people that are thinking about doing comedy?
You know, it's if you've already got the itch, you got to scratch the itch. You know, if you're hungry, you eat. If you're thirsty, you drink. If you want to make people laugh, just give it a shot. You know, you nobody's career in anything, but especially comedy, nobody's career in comedy has been made or broken the first time they go up. But,
Wow.
you know, I was terrified I'm terrified every time I go up. I'm terrified every time I go up. And I've done, a few clubs, nothing crazy, but a few,
Mhm.
and just embrace the fear, but just make people laugh, just tell stories, it's going to take a while before you find your voice. The way you're funny with your friends isn't necessarily going to be, you can't be that on stage too. It takes a long time until you find a way to connect the two. So, but just do it. If, you're not going to get better by not doing it.
What's the biggest thing that made you afraid to do it, or that was hard for you to get over? Was it possibly getting heckled, or the fear of bombing, or the fear of bombing again, or what kind of fear did you ever have regarding comedy?
But the bombing, mainly because bombing, equals failure for sometimes you're
Mhm.
at a bad night. Sometimes everybody bombs because it's a bad bar, but I didn't want to fail. I'm terrified of failure in everything I do. I hate it. So, and I'm, you know, a very insecure person. So if other people think I succeed, then I want to take that as successful. If other people think I failed, then I failed. Because if nobody laughs, then I failed. But if they laugh, then if people tell me I'm good, if people tell me I'm funny, then I succeeded. You can't bomb and then still think that you did well. That's what I was thinking. Like, oh no, they're just stupid. I'm funny. I wouldn't have had the confidence to move forward. I'm a little better at it now, but that's what I was scared of. It was just failing, because I just didn't want to fail at all.
Absolutely. Especially since you love it so much. To fail at something you love and you've loved your whole life, that would be horrible. So you're going to find a way not to fail, which is what you're doing. So
Right.
kudos on that. Kudos on networking so well with other comics, Christopher Titus and Chris Shaw, and the list goes on. So where can I tell people to follow you? Because we know it's a numbers game. Getting booked depends on social media. So
Yeah.
what are some social media? You mentioned your show that's on Instagram on Tuesdays. Tuesdays, what time roughly?
7 p.m. Pacific. And
Okay.
we're actually doing one tomorrow to preview the fight tomorrow, because we got a shift in schedules this week I had a job interview, and he's a performer as well. He's a hip hop performer as well. So he's always having to record stuff, but they can find me. My name is Shane McMurdo. If you search that, there's not many of us, but Shane _MCM on Instagram, and then just Shane McMurdo on Facebook. And then the show we have is Punchlines Pod on Instagram, punchlines_pod, POD.
And that's 7 p.m. tomorrow, correct? And usually
Tomorrow,
on Tuesday.
yeah, usually 7 p.m. Tuesdays, Instagram Live. We're going to have a hip hop artist on there this coming week. We're trying to get another interview with a boxing trainer out here. This guy's got a crazy story too. He's from Cuba and everything. He defected over here. He had to hide in like Mexico for a month before he could come over here. It's crazy story. But yeah, tomorrow we're just previewing the big fight this weekend. Going to talk about that. And then yeah, but punchlines_pod on Instagram is where our show is. And then I'm Shane_MCM.
Got it. And then Shane McMurdo on Facebook.
Ma'am.
Thank you so much. I'd like to turn the floor over to you. If there's anything I haven't asked you and you would like to, you take a minute. Have I missed anything that you wish I would have asked?
No, I wish we could have both talked more about being veterans and being in the military a little more, because that is something we connect with.
Would you like to do that now?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, let's do it. I'm
A lot
retired.
of people.
I could be here all day.
Okay.
So let's
Yeah.
talk about both being veterans. I was in the 70s. You were in like the early 2000s?
No, I was in from 2011 until this past August of 2020.
Wow. Did you go in because of September 11th?
It was a big part of it, you know, because I was in 4th grade when that happened, and life has been changed ever since, you know. But it was a big part that inspired me to do it, for sure.
Yeah, and then you had like a grandfather that was in the military in World War I in the Army, right?
Yeah, so I had my great-great-grandfather was World War I, and then great-grandfather was World War II, and then my grandfather was Korea and Vietnam.
Wow.
Yeah.
And your dad was a rebel. He's
My
the
dad,
RN.
my dad tried to join, but he couldn't because he broke his back really bad in high school.
How
Yeah,
did
so
he break his back?
football. He got hit illegally in the back, and it broke his back. And then he broke it a second time, and by falling off of a roof. Yeah.
He was in the roofing business or something he did off the job.
He was a roofer out here, and he fell off of a 32-foot roof. Lucky he didn't die.
Yeah. Is he still alive?
Yeah, he lives in a town called Moab, Utah. He's a journalist, a newspaper journalist up there.
Wow. Yeah. And is your grandpa still alive?
No, I actually never got to meet my grandpa.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a cool heritage in your family. If your dad wouldn't have been injured, would he have gone into the military?
Yeah, he tried to.
Did
He tried to go to the Marine Corps.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about the fact that we were both in the military and now we're both veterans. What are some things you'd like to mention about that? Talking points.
It's not easy, you know, because, you know, like, especially, yeah, I was in E6, which isn't the highest, but it's still decently high. And then I get out and I'm a 28-year-old college freshman, and all these 18-year-olds are looking at me like, why are you so old? And then all the older people are looking at me like, why are you just now a freshman? And I don't know. I never saw combat. I would never pretend to even act like I saw combat. But regardless of what you do in the military, if you do it long enough, it will change you. And, you know, I changed a lot. I don't, you know, I get frustrated. I get irritable out of nowhere. And I don't know how to communicate it with people. And in the military, that wasn't an issue because you keep everything to yourself in the military for the most part. So it's just been difficult trying to find where I fit in the world.
So the transition, we just temporarily lost audio and video. He'll be back. He's speaking to the unique transition that military people have coming back into the world from being in a unique environment. And it is such a difficult transition. They actually have people in the military before you leave that help you out process so that you're prepared for the changes when you get back to regular civilian life. But I'm not so sure that people can fully prepare you for the difference. Because when you're in a protected group of people, we all have something in common. And I'm going to write him real quick and say, are you able to come back? And then when you get out of the military, you're not protected. You don't have things in common with people anymore. Maybe his machine died. Don't you worry. We're going to get you back in. So, you know, a lot of people have so much trouble coming back into the civilian life after being in the military. And the military is really hard and taxing on people. You know, there's traumas that you go through in the military, and because you're around other people who are also going through that trauma, you have a group that supports you. Once you get away from those people, it's a whole new life. He's coming back in now, any second. He was coming in. There he is. There you are, Shane.
Yeah, sorry.
That's
Once I
okay.
saw you not blinking, I figured something was up.
I don't know how come that happened. I blame the Russians.
Yeah, me too.
So the thing is like when you're in the military, you go through a lot of crappy things, basic training, getting yelled at, talked down to, and you have camaraderie with others. They're your support because they're all going through it, seeing it, witnessing it, bearing it with you. And then you get away from that support, that safety shield, and you're out in the real world with people who don't even know what the military is. Maybe they're not even pro-military. You've given up 6 years of your life. Now you're 6 years behind them in the real world. You know, like I went into the military in the 70s. I had been a banker, went in the military and did bank work. And there's supposed to be a law that when you come back, you get your old job back, and my old job wouldn't take me back.
Oh, yeah, that's in place now. But yeah, a lot of people have been messed up by that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I can barely get a job now with 9 years of service, you know? Um, and it's just the VA is a nightmare. You know,
It is.
I watched a guy in a wheelchair yesterday ask, or not yesterday, but earlier this week, ask 4 different nurses for a mask so he could put it on before he got on the shuttle that was there to pick him up. And none of them would grab it for him. And then they wouldn't even let me grab it for him. I grabbed it anyway. Like, what are they going to do? Hit me? You know, I'm grabbing a guy a mask. But they were yelling at me saying I couldn't because I'm not allowed to touch him if it's for somebody else.
I swear. People are acting like Hitler lately. You know, they're taking these rules and shoving them down everybody. Just mind your own business, you know? Like, you're smart enough to know the guy needs a mask, you're going to get the mask.
Just what happened? What happened to people just not being like decent, you know? Like it's an old vet because this is the VA. Literally every person in this hospital, except the employees, has served in the military, and you're treating them like it's not as bad as boot camp, but they treat people like they need to follow rules and stuff, like they're not deserving of respect. It's insane. They're, you know, when I showed up because I had to do a walk-in appointment. When I showed up and I said, I'm here for mental health, the lady at the front desk rolled her eyes. She was like, and then she's like, I need you to fill this out. And I'm like, what? Like, like you see videos of people doing like 22 push-ups on Facebook because that's the number of veterans that kill themselves every day. Like it's a real pandemic. I just told you I'm here for mental health and you rolled your eyes. Like that's bizarre to me.
That's
That's just
crazy.
absolutely insane to me.
You
And
know,
then
like I went through getting hit by a drunk driver in 1996. And then I had to go to the VA to get help. And it took 3 neuropsychologists 2 years to diagnose what I knew happened the instant it happened. How
Yeah,
did it take them 2 years? You know? And then I've seen them mistreat people over and over at the
it's
VA.
absurd. I got medically retired. So it's not like I just got out. I didn't, I got told by the military, medically, you are no longer fit to serve. And I got separated with conditions that they pay me disability for,
Me too.
conditions that I was getting prescribed medication for. And then when that medication stopped, and they won't let you get them. They let me get my antidepressants, but for my anxiety medication, they're saying I have to pass a drug test first. It's like, I'm a veteran now. I'm allowed to use marijuana now and everything, and I do. So, but because it's not federally legal and the VA is federal, they can't give it to me. If I were to go to just a regular Nevada pharmacy, I could get them, but I don't have money for that. And then, that's another thing. I was supposed to go to school here, but the VA officials at College of Southern Nevada are terrible.
Wow.
They didn't tell me until the week before. I applied to the school in early December of last year, and they didn't tell me until the week before registration that I could only register for classes with the VA. And this is a week before the semester. And then the VA officials, they don't have a phone number, they just have an email. And it took them a week to get back to me. And then every time they would email me back, they would say, okay, we need you to fill this out. We need you to fill this out. And I said, why don't you just give me all of this at the beginning?
Exactly.
Like when I went to Oklahoma State, it was easy because it's a big university, but everything out here, everybody's just so spread out. And then they said, okay, you might have to pay for your first month or two of tuition before we process your paperwork. I'm like, I don't have a job. Like, I'm getting my money from the GI Bill. So now I was like, I don't even want to go to school here. So I just withdrew from all my classes. And now they're trying to, what's going on?
Am I frozen to you?
No, I see you now. There it is. All right.
I'm
Wait.
telling you, I have never seen more people get mistreated. I've seen people get treated so badly at veteran organizations. It's ridiculous. It's like the worst.
It's bad. And they owe me money too, because when you go through the medical review process, you claim everything there, and then they assign you doctors to look at it. And then I got the letter saying, hey, you're getting medically retired. You leave the Navy August 27th, 2020. I said, okay. And then I hurt my shoulder. I hurt my shoulder working in the Navy. So I went and I had an MRI. I had an 80% torn rotator cuff, and it's still messed up. But I couldn't claim it until I was out because I'd already been medically retired. So I filed the claim, and I'm still not getting money for it. And my shoulder's still messed up.
I had to fight the VA for 36 years. And they finally came through, and they only went back 10 years. They should have gone back 36 years, but they're not. And that's not, I brought in, like, I was mistreated as a woman by men in the military, right? And I went to medical review with an attorney and a DAB representative at the court trial,
Right.
And I was saying that I was applying for disability based on PTSD, and they told me nobody will ever get it. No, a woman is never going to get PTSD because the men mistreated her, and they took my file and threw it about 6 feet in the air, and my file landed all over the floor, and they both walked out of the room. And that's how they treat veterans. And yet, if I walk into a VA hospital, they're afraid if I ask to tell jokes to military, they're afraid that I might trigger a veteran. But the truth is, they're the ones triggering veterans.
Yeah, a joke's going to trigger somebody more than the attitude that they give people.
Thank you. Exactly.
That's why I got so mad, not to get into politics, whatever anybody's stance is, but it's like, you're yelling at a football player for kneeling during the national anthem because it's disrespectful to vets. Why don't you yell at people who treat us to our faces? Like, I don't care what a football player does. Like, this is what's really going. And I'm one of the lucky ones. I never
Yes.
saw combat. I'm one of the lucky ones. My life is a struggle because of my condition, but I'm still able to do this right now. I'm still able to go to a job. There's people missing limbs. There's people who will never, ever get their mental peace back at all.
Never.
And that's how they're getting treated. That lady has no idea. When I walked in, I could have seen my best friend die in Iraq. She has no idea.
None. She does not know.
And that's a standalone case because it wasn't even at the main VA here in Vegas. It was at the one over here on Charleston. And they have no idea. Like that, to think that every VA is probably like that is insane to me.
I know.
But nobody cares.
Yeah, in the Portland, Oregon VA, I walked in there. I was born and raised in Portland. I don't have a police report ever on me. And I said, I want to do comedy for the veterans. And they said, no. And why not? You might trigger one. And literally, I went back every single week for a year until they let me do comedy. It took a year begging them. And then they said, okay, you can go clear over there and do it for, a group of people that are volunteers that have to come on their day off and sit there through a staff meeting. You can try to make them laugh. It didn't work. It's like they got auditoriums that are totally empty. They could fill them, put out a flyer, thousands would be there to laugh, but they won't do it.
That means they have to like work on something. That means they have to do something. That's what it really is. It's also one of a typical military thing. When you come up with an idea, they immediately use a knee-jerk reaction and say no instead of just thinking it out. Because it's the same thing when you're in and they tell you to do something and you bring up serious reasons as to why that's a bad idea, and they tell you, just do it, without actually thinking things through.
That makes sense. But like when I go to the VA to get like a refill on acetaminophen and, or get it, I fall and hurt my knee and have to go to the emergency room and I see a veteran in a wheelchair with a missing kneecap. And I talk to him and say, what in the hell are they doing to you? I know what they're doing to me, but what are they doing? He says, I've been here 3 months waiting for a replacement knee. And they don't even have the part. And yet they're afraid I'm going to do harm by telling jokes.
Yeah.
Get serious. Yeah. It's such a bummer what's going on at the VA, I've seen them be so mean and rude, like in psych classes. You can, with a brain injury, I've had to go to psych classes and I've seen how they treat us like the lady did you, rolling her eyes. And like we become second-class citizens of the VA because we have psych issues. Like I woke up one day and said, you know what? Usually I go to the store and get butter. Today I'm going to go get a psych issue. Like I went out to buy it and I chose it. It chose me,
Yeah, I didn't want this.
No, none of us do. So I hate the stigma of mental illness. Like it, I got treated poorly by men in the military and it bothered me and I'm not going to shut up about it. It's still going on. Young ladies and men, I talk to them at the recruiters, they're still getting mistreated in the military. As human beings, they're not treated right.
I got abused by my command because of they tried to get me for malingering. They thought I was faking being depressed and having anxiety to get out of recruiting. Yeah.
That just makes it worse.
So, this is what Navy Recruiting District New York did to me, now known as Navy Talent Acquisition Group Empire State, if you want to look them up. So it was January of 2019. I got put on medication and it was causing me to have memory loss issues. Sitting at a green light and I wasn't moving because I didn't know where to go. So I told the doctors wanted me to detox from that medication. So I had to go on convalescent leave for 10 days. While I'm on leave, my chief, that's an E7 in the Navy, he texts me and he goes, when you get back, I want all your paperwork from the doctors, from your specialists, any prescriptions, everything, so I can scan it and send it to HQ. And I told him that's in my that's in my medical record, which is basically a nice way of saying, fuck off. I don't have to show you any of that. And he's like, well, then you'll show me your medical record. And then when I refused to give him my medical record, he's like, well, then I can't help you, go recruit, and yelled at me. And then they took me out of recruiting and they made me work at the processing center in Brooklyn, where all the applicants go to join the military. But they wouldn't let me drive a government vehicle there. I had to drive my own vehicle there. And then they told me they wouldn't give me housing allowance for Brooklyn because it would be too late. It would take too long. So I was having to drive my own car 100 miles every day because it's a 50-mile round trip, plus $40 in tolls every single day just to go to work. 60% of my paycheck was going to get to work, or was going to rent and to get to work. And then if they just gave me New York BAH, which is $1,000 more than what I was getting in Jersey, that would have helped. And they refused to do it. And then the guy I worked for, thank God, realized how much that was killing me, how much was taken out of my pocket. And he goes, just work in Jersey. I don't need you here, because I could do my job anywhere. What they were having me do, all I needed was a laptop. I could do it literally anywhere. And he says, yeah, just go to a recruiting station in Jersey. They found out I was doing that. They made me go to another recruiting station in Jersey that was also 50 miles from my house. So I was still driving 100 miles every day. And when they did that, I filed a report and I said, this is what I'm going through. You know, they're trying to force to see my medical record. They're not helping me. They're making my situation worse when they know I have a condition. And it was just bad. It was horrible.
They make it so impossible. Like, it's bad enough that with conditions, people are wanting to take their own lives, and then adding on extra unnecessary stress on top.
Just to let you know that they're still in charge, just so you know, because once people get in charge in the military, they have to always let the people who work for them know. And instead of actually helping people out or trying to help them out. And it's hard because they're never just going to believe you, because there's two things the military cares about. What have you done for me lately? Or what can you do for me in the near future? So if you haven't worked for them lately, or if you're at risk of not being able to work for them very soon, they're going to do everything they can to make sure they can keep control over you. That's all it is.
Jeez, man. Yeah, I've been depressed. I've had things happen in my life where I've needed help, and you get talked down to like you're a second-class citizen when you need psychological help. It's no joke what happens at the VA. No joke.
Yeah, it's sad.
What's something that you think would really help the military and the Department of Veterans Affairs to better treat our military and vets?
I mean, the process to be put in place, a system to be put in place to make it better, I don't know. I just think we need more veterans to get on a platform, you know, and find our way to protest, because this is, you know, we need the VA because that's who gives us our medication and our treatment, and they know that. So that's why they treat us that way. But if more and more people speak out against it, you know, the government, politicians say what people say. So then once they realize that a lot of people are outraged over how veterans are being treated and how the VA works, then they'll start to come up with some type of reform. But it's just going to take a big and loud enough platform. You know, the push-ups and everything have helped, but now we need to really band together and really find a way to do it. And it's something, that's one thing if I ever get a big enough platform through comedy and podcasting, it's something I really want to do. That's why I've been talking to the IGY6 Foundation, and that's what he said, because an organization put in place, because IGY6 stands for I got your six. For non-military people, six is your bag. So it's saying I got your back, to help each other. And it's an organization that helps vets, helps with the mental crises, even financial, economical, just a great organization. And he even said, yeah, because I asked him, I was like, can I talk about you guys on my show? You know, before I just talk about you and plug you, is it okay with you? Because, you know, you might not like that I'm on there cussing or saying certain things. As a comedian, I like to check with people first. And he said, yeah, absolutely. It's like, I wish more veterans would. So that just tells me that we all have our own battles, but like most military people, we're keeping them to ourselves. If we could find a way to create a coalition, a lot could get done and a lot could get improved. And it's needed, because at 22, it's only going to go up.
Yep.
With the way things are, it's only going to go up.
Now you're involved with IGY6, and what other organization did you tell me about over at Rick's Rollin' Barbecue?
Oh, it was just it's called, so IGY6 is the mental health one, and then American Me Comedy. They're the ones that's Mel Hancock and Jason Rogers, Anthony Marsalisi. It's a comedy show. They book them at actual comedy clubs. That's where I did Levity Live. But the proceeds go to a charitable organization. So like all the proceeds from ticket sales and everything go to, I can't remember the charity it was when I performed in Nyack, but the one we're planning on doing in Virginia over the summer would hopefully go to the IGY6.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, you've been a doll to go through the difficult stuff with regard to the military and veterans, how they get treated, how you've been treated. And we came up with, something positive, that it's going to take people to band together to fight it, to make change. So is there anything else you would like to say about military and veterans?
I could say a lot, but none of it's good. You know that, Linda.
No, well, it's tough material to get through, but that's the way it is. It isn't fixed yet, you guys. So when we say thank a vet, we don't just mean saying it, walk a mile in their shoes, get to know them, listen to them, listen to people like me and like Shane, and get to know what struggles we went through and how difficult it's been to transition from the military to regular civilian life, and what are the challenges been. When you listen to other people, you can help heal them, because it's a hurting process and it takes a long time.
But yeah, it's a very unfortunate reality that a lot of people are unaware of.
Yes.
And it's easy to say, yeah, the VA is bad, just like when people say, yeah, the DMV is bad. You don't really know how bad until you see it or you hear somebody's experience.
Like, for instance, I had a blood clot in 2004 and it went to my lung, and they gave me some medicine and I was allergic to it. Had to call an ambulance. Then I became allergic to everything under the sun, 36 ambulance and hospital rides, and the VA refused to pay for any of them. So my credit shot. It took 36 times. Finally, after 36 times, they sent me to an allergist. I kid you not. So I think all us veterans have stories like that, where we've been neglected or abused or mistreated or misdiagnosed by the VA. They're out there trying, and some of them are the greatest people on the planet. It's the system we're talking about, not the people. The negative, like cutting corners and not really diagnosing or diagnosing correct. Not the people, like the people up at the top levels that aren't doing anything about it. But you go in and yes, the lady rolled her eyes at you, and I've had people be mean to me, but for the most part, you get really nice people that, even with the pandemic, they really care now because they've seen the other side of life. They've seen a lot of death. And so I think it's woke up a lot of people on the front lines at the VA. So hopefully sensitivity will start becoming human practice at the VA. But for a long time, it hasn't been.
Oh man,
That's it.
been bad.
It has. Well, what is there anything else you'd like to cover?
I love talking to you so much. I'm trying to think, but I can't. I can't think of nothing right now.
You're always welcome to come back and fill me in on more things, more challenges. Maybe we can stir up people that want to get in there and pull together and try to create change at the VA for veterans.
Oh, absolutely. That's something I definitely love to do. Obviously,
Me
yeah. And
too.
I would. Whenever I get the studio locked down, because it should. Hopefully, it'll be in the next month and a half. I would love to get you on our show just to talk about the comedy as well as just stories from your dad and everything like that. I think people would really enjoy it and everything.
I'd be really honored. Really honored. I wish you the very best with the start of your podcast.
Thank you very much.
It's set to punchlines_pod is getting ready. It's out there already, but it's going to go live as a podcast, not just on Instagram Live soon.
Yes, it's going to be on like Apple, Spotify, and then hopefully YouTube as well. So
Very good. I wish you great success. That's what you deserve. Thank you for
thank you
serving
very
our
much.
country.
You
I'm
too.
sorry for all the mean people in the world.
Sounds like you
People
dealt with a
treated
lot
you.
more.
You know, it's hard to forgive people, but otherwise it just, I don't know, kind of makes us where we pass it on some way to other people if we don't forgive it.
Right. So actually, you know what? It's funny that you bring that up. So we live in a world now where there's been a rise in the quote unquote cancel culture, where if anybody messes up, they just want this person to be eradicated, and rather than forgiving them. Now, I don't think everybody is worthy of forgiveness or of regaining the life they once had, but I think a lot of people have. Like, do you think being able to forgive is kind of being eroded a little bit and people would rather just remove rather than eventually forgive?
Yes, absolutely. And like even with, you look at TV pastors on TV, they used to talk about forgiveness and wiping the slate clean and going back and forgiving people. And they're not even talking about that. They're like, yeah, if somebody screwed you over, you're better off without them. Like, hey, that's not the God I know from the Old or the New Testament. That's human nature saying that. So yeah, I mean, like, you got a problem? Well, you don't exist anymore. That seems to be, we're going to cancel you. You said the
Yeah,
wrong word. No, what happened to rehabilitating somebody and restoring back, you know, like, I think if somebody's even a pedophile and they've gone out and done horrible things to children, a leopard or what a Dalmatian can change their spots if they want to bad enough. They can go get help. There's help out there to help. The worst of it, a killer can stop killing. A pedophile can stop doing that. Anybody can change. I know I was raised to lie, cheat, and steal, and I stopped.
oh yeah, you're the daughter of a boxing promoter. I know you were.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know how to do that. I could go back to it, but I'm not gonna. But I know what it is, and I know when I stopped, you know? So I just think we're doing a real disservice by canceling because we're not, what are we doing? You know, like, where do these people go once they get canceled? They just go act like a moron somewhere else. They never get help.
right. And it's funny too because it's who gets forgiveness and who doesn't. That's like Louis C.K. I don't have to say what he did. Most of us know what he did. If you don't, you're more than welcome to do research. But they wanted him to never come back. Now, I'm not defending what he did, but I'll say this. If you voted in the 2020 election, regardless of who you voted for, they've done things worse than that. And they're running to be the ruler of the free world, you know? And that's okay. You guys fight with each other until you're blue in the face over which one of them's the good guy and not. But both of them have done way worse things on record than what Louis C.K. did. and he's not even allowed to get up and tell jokes that you don't have to listen to, or you probably weren't even a fan of the guy to begin with. You just don't want him to have success because he did something you don't like, or any other like really silly ones. Now, people who commit actual atrocities, like that basketball player that just said a racial slur on live streaming, no, like, yes, he should eventually be able to give him forgiveness, but that comes from a place of hatred. That comes from there's actual bad people should get canceled, but people who've done bad things and want forgiveness and want to change, they should be granted that. You can't pick and choose who gets a second chance and who doesn't just because of your preference. That's not fair, because that can happen to you. That can happen to what?
And exactly. If it happened to him, it could happen to, be careful pointing the finger, because you point one, four are coming back at you.
Oh yeah,
If you count your thumb, but your thumb never does that. It's really three. Yeah. It's a judgmental world, and everybody's making split decisions on other people's lives. It's scary. So, yeah. So on the positive side, you're doing comedy, and the comedy world is so lucky to have you in it. I think you're such a bright light in a very dark world.
Thank you very much.
You light up a room, and I know that you didn't even have to tell me you were connected to your grandparents and great-grandparents, and that they mean a lot to you. You can feel it. You're an old soul in a new world, and you're so different.
In December of 2016, I went to a concert, and I was the youngest person there by like 40 years. I was all by myself because it was John Prine and Chris Christopherson together. And then I bought t-shirts for like my grandparents and my parents and everything, but they were all like, why are you here? Like, everybody was there asking me that, like, why are you here? Because I was only 24 at the time, and I was like, oh, I grew up listening to these guys, man. So yeah, I've always kind of been told I have a very old soul.
You do, and it's so great to meet people who are in touch with an old soul, because you can tell right away. You're respectful, and you come from a deeper knowledge. That makes you a better comedian, because you're not limited to what you've experienced. You've experienced through the lives of other people who are older, like me, and older than me. You've learned from people who have experience. So it adds to your experience, makes you much more interesting as a comedian and as a human.
Right. I mean, I don't always learn from their experiences. I mean, I did move to New Jersey for a girl with a faded Captain America tattoo, but I will listen to them. I listen to them, whether I take the advice or not. Is usually where I falter, but I will listen to them for sure.
That's awesome. Well, do you have any upcoming shows happening that I can let people know about?
Nothing booked. It's
Okay.
right now with the minimal venues, it's kind of a waiting game I've came to see. And I'm kind of glad for that, because I was off stage for 10 months. So even right now, I'm still trying to get my legs back up there and more confidence in doing newer material. So no, I don't have anything booked right now, but hopefully soon. What about you?
Let's see, I've got, Zoom coming out the kazoo.
Oh, you do a lot of the Zoom shows?
Yeah, a ton of them. And, but in person, I don't have anything live booked. I've got some promises of a lot of things going on. So that's great. So, I'll just hit the road. I plan on trying to get my license and a vehicle and hit the road and go do comedy clubs in California and Utah and Colorado and Arizona. I want to get out there and experience this.
Oh yeah, all those places. I don't know so much about Utah, but I know Arizona, Colorado, and obviously California for sure have a lot of clubs.
Yeah. So if you had your druthers, where's the one state you would go and do comedy today at, if you could pick a state?
In today's world, like right now?
No, let's say it's safe, totally safe today. Where would you go first?
California or New York, you know. I want to do a set at the Comedy Store before I'm done with this thing, you know, but and I started in New York, so New York will always have a place in my heart. But yeah, if I could go anywhere, it'd be one of those two places. But I want to get better. That way I can give my home city something to be proud of and bring shows here and then bring shows to the military. Hopefully try to combine all of that and everything, you know, but California, New York is where I'd want to be. But if I were ever able to do a big special, it'd either be here or San Diego.
Wonderful. And so have you ever heard of the Veterans of Comedy.org?
I have not.
Check them out. It's a couple military veterans, Will C. and Eric Knowles, they're headliners, and they started an organization called Veterans of Comedy. And they just let me in, and it's for military veterans to do comedy
Oh wow, that's awesome.
in the United States. So it's
Right.
like a USO tour, but stateside.
Oh wow, that's awesome though.
Get a hold of them.
Okay, I'll definitely do.
Veterans of Comedy. They go all over.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely look up that.
They're good people.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to head out of here, and I'll give you one more chance to say anything else.
No, nothing now. I've got nothing now. All right.
All right. Well, you're welcome to come back once a month when anything happens that you want us to know about. If you think of a way to start action at the VA, or you have a show or a mic, or your podcast gets going, or anything where you want people to come, tell me you want to come on for 5 to 10 minutes.
Oh, absolutely, I would love to.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda. Have a good
Follow
weekend.
him, Shane McMurdo. I'll put all your information on the post, and I'll send you a copy of it so you can share it as well.
Please, thank you very much.
And tell your mom hi. Thanks for
Yes,
watching.
she was so excited for that. She's probably watching right now.
You should
All
be
right.
so proud of your son. He's so honest, so real, so authentic, and I'm proud of him. So imagine how you must feel, Mom.
All right. Thank you once again, Linda.
And thanks for your service.
Thank
Bye.
you. You too. Bye.
Thank you, Shane.